recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank the gentleman, salute him for his work on this, rise in support of the amendment. First of all, Social Security card is used from one end of America to the other as an identification card right now. Who are we kidding? If you want to pass a law and says it shouldn't be, I would ask the chairman and the distinguished minority member of the Social Security committee to pass that law, but let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a Social Security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a Social Security card. This is an anti-fraud amendment. Over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud. And here, the gentleman from Florida has put together the most effective anti-fraud measure we can find without it changing the actions of the government one bit. And we find all this opposition. Ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, what I worry about is that this bill, which started out with good intentions, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, is going to end up being the same kind of thing that the public gets angry with us on. We say we're doing something, and we do nothing. Because every time someone makes a rational and small proposal to get something done, people say, well, what about this hypothetical, that hypothetical, etc. I urge support of this amendment. If you believe you want to stop fraud in immigration, you have no choice but to support this amendment.
Gentleman's time.
Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Boards, May 21st, 2026, tonight's top story begins in Washington, where the Trump administration says it can move forward with a proposed 250-foot triumphal arch near Arlington without new approval from Congress. Officials are pointing to existing federal authorization around the Memorial Circle area as the legal basis for the project. The arch is being framed as part of America's 250th anniversary celebration, and the administration is signaling that it intends to build big, move fast, and use the authority already on the books. This is not just a monument story. It is a message about national identity, executive power, and who gets to shape the symbols of America's next chapter. President Donald Trump is also tightening control over America's financial system with a new executive order titled Restoring Integrity to America's Financial System. The order targets banking access, credit, identity verification, and financial services used by illegal aliens without proper legal status or work authorization. The administration says the goal is to reduce fraud, protect banks, and stop abuse of U.S. financial institutions. This moves immigration enforcement beyond the border and into the banking system, where access to credit and financial tools becomes part of the larger enforcement strategy. That banking order fits into a broader Trump pressure campaign against illegal immigration. The administration is moving to squeeze illegal aliens out of major parts of the U.S. financial system by closing loopholes and forcing stronger customer identification standards. The larger message is simple. Unlawful presence should not come with access to the same financial privileges as lawful citizens and legal workers. Trump is using federal power to make the system harder to exploit and to put financial consequences behind immigration law. Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt is calling on the Justice Department to investigate Governor Gretchen Whitmer over a $20 million nonprofit grant scandal. The issue centers on taxpayer money, political connections, and whether state oversight failed before funds were awarded. Nesbitt says the public deserves a federal review into who approved the grant, where the money went, and whether political favoritism played a role. This puts Whitmer's administration under direct pressure as Michigan's nonprofit fraud questions continue to grow. President Trump is amplifying the indictment of Carmen Lineberger, the former federal prosecutor accused of sending herself a sealed copy of Jack Smith's Mar-a-Lago classified documents report. Prosecutors say Lineberger moved the unreleased report to her personal email and disguised the file name as a cake recipe. Trump's repost puts the Jack Smith operation back under the spotlight and raises direct questions about how sealed Trump-related Justice Department materials were handled behind the scenes. Carmen Lineberger, a former U.S. attorney, is now facing federal charges tied to the alleged improper transfer and concealment of government records. The report at the center of the case was connected to Jack Smith's now-dismissed classified documents case against Donald Trump. Just the News is also covering the indictment, which has become a major accountability story because it involves sensitive DOJ material, personal email use, and restricted documents connected to one of the biggest political prosecutions in modern American history. On Capitol Hill, the House Judiciary Committee is putting the Southern Poverty Law Center under heavy scrutiny in a hearing titled "The Southern Poverty Law Center: Manufacturing Hate." Lawmakers are examining the SPLC's fundraising, donor messaging, public claims, internal conduct, and its role in shaping civil rights narratives. Critics argue the organization has used its watchdog label as a political weapon. Congress is now asking whether the SPLC's public image matches its record. President Trump addressed the Coast Guard Academy graduation in New London, Connecticut, praising the cadets as America's first defenders, first responders, and the living standard-bearers of America's first fleet. Trump tied the Coast Guard mission to border security, maritime defense, rescue operations, drug interdiction, and national strength. His message to the graduates was direct: protect the homeland, defend America's waters, and carry forward a tradition built on courage, discipline, and service. Trump's Coast Guard appearance also served as a major military stage moment. He told the graduating cadets they will be tested in their careers and called on them to lead with strength. The speech placed the Coast Guard at the center of America First security policy, from stopping drugs and defending ports to responding to disasters and saving lives. The ceremony became more than a graduation. It became a statement about national readiness. Nancy Pelosi has endorsed San Francisco Supervisor Connie Chan to succeed her in Congress. Pelosi's backing gives Chan a powerful advantage in fundraising, endorsements, and establishment support. This race is now a test of whether the old San Francisco power structure can transfer control cleanly to the next generation. Pelosi's endorsement signals where the party machine wants the seat to go and puts Chan at the center of one of the most watched succession fights in Democratic politics. First Lady Melania Trump is highlighting 4 community-centered pillars tied to foster care. Her focus is on supporting children, strengthening families, improving community involvement, and building better pathways for young people who age out of the system. The message is practical and direct. Vulnerable children need stable homes, stronger support networks, and long-term opportunity. Melania's foster care work keeps attention on children who are too often forgotten by the political system. A resurfaced 1996 clip of Senator Chuck Schumer is drawing attention because Schumer said the #1 reason illegal aliens came to the United States was to defraud government programs. The clip is being used to compare past Democratic immigration rhetoric with today's party position. It lands directly in the current debate over welfare fraud, border enforcement, and whether leaders who once sounded tough on illegal immigration changed their position when the politics changed. Jeff Bezos is calling for the bottom half of American earners to pay 0 federal income tax. In a CNBC interview, Bezos argued that America is wealthy enough to remove that burden from lower-income workers completely. He did not say lower the tax. He said eliminate it. That puts one of the richest men in the world behind a tax idea aimed directly at working-class Americans and puts new pressure on Washington's tax debate. Jeff Bezos also gave President Trump credit, saying Trump is doing some great things. The comment stands out because Bezos and Trump have had years of public tension over Amazon, media coverage, and federal policy. Bezos' remarks signal a noticeable shift in tone from one of America's most powerful business figures. At a time when tech, Tax policy and economic power are all front and center. Bezos is choosing to give Trump public credit. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is facing renewed criticism over homelessness as the city continues to struggle with street encampments, public safety concerns, and visible disorder. Critics say Los Angeles has become a magnet for the street homeless because city policy has failed to restore order or accountability. The issue remains one of the clearest tests of big city democratic governance, and Los Angeles is still failing that test in front of the whole country.
At shop.isawaya.com, everything you buy supports Acun.top, the place where people talk freely no matter what. Check out our Acun Honey Pot, a jar of yummy honey that's as strong as your voice. Put it on toaster and tea. It's not just honey, it's freedom in every bite. Then there's Acun Butter, a smooth handmade skin cream that makes you feel good while you fight for what's right. Awesome wood and pieces for display only. Hang them up or set them out. They're for showing off Acun's tough spirit. Want to help even more? Get a proto membership. So go to shop.isawaya.com now and grab some goodies. Help Acun.top keep free speech alive, and let's keep the ideas flowing loud and free.
All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Boards, May 20th, 2026. The fountains at Meridian Hill Park in Northwest Washington, D.C. are flowing again for the first time in nearly a decade. It is a smaller story, but it is still a visible sign of civic restoration in the nation's capital. After years of decay, one of DC's historic public spaces is showing life again. Basic maintenance matters, and this is a reminder that public spaces can be restored when leaders finally act. Now to election integrity. Election analyst Seth Keshel says that if Trump had been left alone to win re-election in 2020, the country may never have seen the depth of election system problems. His argument is that the fight after 2020 forced hidden weaknesses, institutional resistance, and irregularities into public view. In that framing, the battle did not just expose one election, it exposed the machinery around the election system itself. The January 6th informant story is also back in focus. The claim centers on Christopher Wray's FBI paid confidential informants in Washington, D.C., and whether the public has received the full truth about federal involvement that day. The core question is whether federal agencies simply monitored events or helped shape them. This story continues to drive demands for document releases, sworn testimony, and accountability inside the FBI. Representative Nancy Mace says she was injured by the COVID shot and is warning America to learn from the failures of vaccine mandates. Mace's message is about medical freedom, government pressure, and the danger of allowing global institutions and public officials to force health decisions on citizens. Her warning is aimed at the next crisis. Do not repeat the mandates, do not silence the injured, and do not let emergency powers become permanent power. A political argument circulating online says Black women could reshape America's future by walking away from the Democratic Party. The point is simple. Democrats rely heavily on loyal Black female voters, and a major shift in that voting bloc would disrupt the party's national coalition. This is a direct challenge to one of the most dependable Democratic voting groups, and part of a larger push to break old political habits before the next election cycle. Now overseas, Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Beijing for a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two leaders are presenting a united front against U.S. power while expanding cooperation on trade, energy, technology, and security. Russia is leaning more heavily on China, while Beijing is positioning itself as a central power broker between East and West. The Putin-Xi relationship is one of the biggest global power stories on the board. White House official Stephen Miller issued a sharp warning to Iran, saying Tehran can either accept an agreement satisfactory to the United States or face punishment from the U.S. military. That message comes as Iran reviews a U.S. proposal and tensions remain high across the Middle East. The Trump administration is making the choice clear: take the deal or face consequences. Diplomacy is still on the table, but military force is also being openly discussed. The broader Middle East and Iran military picture remains one major pressure campaign. U.S. officials are warning Iran, regional forces are watching closely, and shipping lanes remain under stress. Oil routes, Israel, U.S. bases, and maritime security are all tied together. With the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's military posture, and American deterrence all in play, this is one of the most dangerous live foreign policy flashpoints in the world. The United Arab Emirates says its new oil pipeline bypassing the Strait of Hormuz is nearly 50% complete. The project is designed to move crude through Fujairah and reduce dependence on one of the world's most vulnerable choke points. With Middle East tensions threatening shipping lanes and energy markets, the UAE is moving to protect its exports and build a route that can keep oil flowing even if Hormuz becomes unstable. The White House is highlighting a U.S.-Venezuela mineral deal as part of a wider resource security strategy. Washington is looking at critical minerals, gold, oil, and supply chains through a national security lens. The message is that America does not want to depend on hostile powers for essential resources, especially when those materials are tied to energy, defense, technology, and industrial production. Venezuela is being pulled into a broader Western Hemisphere resource strategy. A serious Ebola case from the Democratic Republic of Congo has moved into Europe. An American doctor who contracted Ebola while working in Congo has been flown to Germany for treatment, while his wife and children are being monitored as close contacts. The case highlights the danger faced by medical workers responding to deadly outbreaks overseas and reminds the world that infectious disease threats can move quickly across borders. Secretary of State Marco Rubio delivered a message to the people of Cuba, continuing the Trump administration's pressure campaign against the communist regime. Rubio's message focused on freedom, accountability, and support for the Cuban people rather than the ruling government. The administration is framing Cuba policy around human rights, anti-communism, and regional security in the Western Hemisphere. The United States has charged former Cuban leader Raul Castro with murder over the 1996 killing of Americans connected to the Brothers to the Rescue shootdown. The case revives one of the most painful episodes in U.S.-Cuba relations. The charges send a clear message that crimes tied to communist regimes may still face legal consequences even decades later. President Trump says he is at 99% in Israel, reinforcing his strong connection with the Israeli public and his administration's pro-Israel policies. The remark comes as Middle East tensions remain high, and U.S. policy toward Iran, Israel, and regional security dominates foreign policy headlines. Trump is once again tying his foreign policy brand to strength, loyalty, and support for Israel. British officials say Russian fighter jets dangerously intercepted an RAF surveillance aircraft over the Black Sea. The unarmed British Rivet joint plane was operating in international airspace when Russian aircraft flew extremely close, including one pass reported at only a few meters. The United Kingdom called the behavior reckless and unacceptable. This is the kind of military encounter that can turn a tense situation into a direct crisis fast. Ukrainian authorities have detained police officials in a corruption probe involving underground adult content studios. Investigators say police leaders in multiple regions accepted regular bribes to protect illegal operations from enforcement. The case adds another corruption scandal to Ukraine's internal security system at a time when the country is already under wartime pressure and dependent on international support.
Every voice matters. The power of free speech is more important than ever. Imagine a place where you can share your thoughts freely, explore new ideas, and engage in meaningful conversations anonymously. With online anonymity, you can express yourself without fear of judgment. It's about freedom, creativity, and connection. Join the conversation that matters. Embrace your voice. Celebrate your freedom. Visit 8kun.top today. That's 8kun.top.
All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Board's May 21st, 2026. Now to crime and accountability. Minnesota fraud allegations continue to expand, with reports tying millions in taxpayer childcare subsidy payments to centers under investigation. One case being discussed involves roughly $3.67 million connected to childcare fraud. The broader issue is much larger. Minnesota has faced mounting scrutiny over public program fraud, weak oversight, and whether state systems failed to stop abuse before taxpayer money disappeared. Reporter Ben Bergquam posted video showing an illegal alien driver causing a freeway accident near the scene of an ICE arrest. The incident is being used by border security advocates as another example of public safety risks tied to illegal immigration. The point is not only what happens at the border. The point is what happens on American roads, in American cities, and inside communities forced to deal with the consequences of weak enforcement. A Tennessee man who spent 37 days in jail over a Trump-related meme has won an $835,000 settlement. Larry Bushart sued after he was arrested over a Facebook post that authorities treated as a threat. The charges were dropped, and his legal team argued the arrest violated his First Amendment rights. The settlement is a major free speech win and a warning to local officials who overreact to political speech. Reports say Representative Ilhan Omar is under Justice Department investigation over immigration fraud and family finances. Omar has been one of the most visible progressive Democrats in Congress and a frequent target of Republican scrutiny. This story is politically explosive because it touches immigration, personal finances, and public trust. If the investigation advances, it could become one of the biggest accountability stories involving a sitting member of Congress. A viral message declaring that justice will be served and that enemies of America are being neutralized is circulating online. The message is political, direct, and aimed at accountability. Its theme is that corrupt actors are being exposed, removed, and forced into the light. Whether tied to prosecutions, investigations, or broader political momentum, the message reflects the mood of a movement that wants action, not excuses. Now to tech and the future. SpaceX is moving closer to a historic public offering after reports that the company filed confidentially for an IPO. Analysts say the listing could become one of the largest in stock market history, with valuation targets reaching into the trillion-dollar range. If the IPO moves forward, investors would gain direct access to Elon Musk's rocket, satellite, Starlink, and space infrastructure empire. Meta is reportedly cutting thousands of workers, with reports saying as many as 8,000 jobs are being eliminated. The layoffs mark another major restructuring move in the tech sector as companies shift money toward artificial intelligence, automation, and leaner operations. Big tech is still investing heavily, but the workforce picture is changing fast. White-collar tech jobs are no longer protected from the same disruption that hit factory workers years ago. The National Security Agency has released hundreds of pages of formerly top-secret Umbra records connected to UAP material. The release adds to the growing archive of government documents tied to unidentified aerial phenomena, national security, and intelligence collection. The documents give researchers more primary material to examine as public demand for UAP transparency continues to build. The wall of secrecy is not gone, but more pieces are coming out. The U.S. commander responsible for tracking objects in space says America is monitoring the sky with unmatched reach. Space tracking is no longer just about satellites. It is about missile warning, debris, hostile systems, commercial traffic, and military dominance above the atmosphere. Space is now a contested battlefield, and the United States intends to know what is moving overhead. The FDA is dropping vape-related guardrails in a major administration pivot. The move signals a shift away from the previous regulatory posture and toward a different balance between public health, adult consumer access, and enforcement priorities. The fight over vaping is not going away, but Washington's direction is changing. This is another example of the Trump administration reversing the regulatory habits of the previous order. AIPAC is facing online questions over the gap between its reported millions of American members and its much smaller follower count on X. Critics are asking how political power, lobbying strength, and public support should be measured. The issue is not just social media math. It is about influence, donor networks, foreign policy pressure, and how organizations shape Washington even when their public footprint looks smaller than their political reach. Promethean Overviews is framing Trump's strategy as a political pincer move designed to trap the left between failed institutions, exposed policies, and voter backlash. The analysis points to immigration, lawfare accountability, financial controls, election integrity, and cultural issues as pressure points moving at the same time. The argument is that Trump is not fighting one front. He is forcing the opposition to defend every weak point at once. President Trump has endorsed Spencer Pratt, giving the reality TV figure a surprise political boost. The endorsement is unusual, but it fits Trump's long-running media strategy. Trump understands that politics, celebrity, social media, and culture all overlap. By endorsing Pratt, he pushes a pop culture figure into the political conversation and reminds the public that influence does not only come from traditional politicians. President Trump also spoke to reporters after returning to Joint Base Andrews, addressing questions as multiple domestic and foreign issues moved at once. These tarmac exchanges have become part of Trump's governing style. Direct, unscripted, fast-moving, and built to set the news cycle before anyone else can frame it. Trump uses the camera, the questions, and the moment to drive the message straight to the public. And that is tonight's picture. Trump is building symbols, tightening systems, pressuring illegal immigration through finance, backing the Coast Guard, confronting Iran, watching China and Russia link arms, exposing the old DOJ machinery, and pushing accountability across the board. From Washington to Beijing, from the border to the banks, from space to the streets, the pattern is clear. Power is shifting, weak systems are being tested, and the next phase is already moving.
Don'tDeleteMeBro.com. 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 Share the site with others. Don'tDeleteMeBro.com. 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 Share the site with others. Don'tDeleteMeBro.com.
That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen, including me. God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. See you soon.